Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer.
No, we're talking about aliens?
Yeah, we're talking about alien abductions today. Bonus
Yay.
points. Dan, do you know that reference?
Yeah, that's, oh my gosh, Beverly Hillbillies?
Yeah. Nice.
Hey.
All right, so today I want to talk about alien abductions. And we're going to talk about current alien abductions. But there hasn't been any that I could find.
There's a good show. Well, thanks for sticking with us, guys.
So typically what I've been trying to do with these alien seasons is I look classic stories and stuff that has come up, and then we reference those and talk about a current sighting or whatever, like we did with the alien UFOs last week.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago at the rate we're going. But I have searched high and low for alien abduction stories, and I can't find anything past like 2010.
Yeah.
The only thing I was able to find is the best alien abduction stories from the alien abduction Reddit.
Ah, perfect.
So I'm assuming that they all went to Reddit.
Yeah, right? 'Cause, here's the thing. When I was a kid, I used to be really into aliens, and I did all this research and learn all this stuff. And like the places they were, like they congregated on message boards and chat rooms and stuff like that. So I would imagine that the modern alien abductee would go to like 4chan or Reddit or something.
There's more famous stories, and I'm going to start this off by talking about the most famous alien abduction story that has pretty much created all the following ones. But I wanted to ask you two, because while I doubt that there has been zero alien abduction stories since 2010, why is it that whenever I went looking for alien abduction stories, it was almost like a hard stop at 2010. Before that, I could find like a 2008 one, a 2007 one, a 2000, but like 2010, it just stopped. It like dried up. Why do you think alien abduction tales stopped around 2010 in broad spectrum, I should say? Because I guarantee there's some out there and someone's going to be like, Benny, didn't you hear about the crazy 2017? Someone's going to do that, but.
Right.
The advent of the iPhone or the like cell phone camera being actually good. Like the fact that you could easily prove that that's not true.
But the whole point of an alien abduction story is I'm driving and I got abducted.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm out. Like, why would I have my stuff? I watched this show called Resident Alien. One of the other shows that I try to watch, when I talk about how overwhelmed I am with all the content I am. Another one of those is an Amazon Prime show called Resident Alien, which stars Alan Tudyk as an alien who's come to Earth and is now trying to, like, blend in.
Yeah, how is that?
Oh, it's actually really funny. It's a little
good.
It's a little awkward and stiff at the beginning, but it grows on you once you get used to the characters and the way they're acting.
Nice.
But the latest episode, the last couple series, he got abducted by the Greys. Okay, so Greys, if you don't know, are one of the types of aliens. They're the one you see almost everywhere with the big eyes. Mm-hmm. And the way they did it is they froze the car and like no one knew what was happening, and then he did the abduction.
Right.
So that I could see the like, oh, you got to trust me, bro, as my source for alien abductions being valid because why would I have a camera on me for that?
Yeah.
So why do you think they've dried up? Because I don't think it's the advent of the phone. Because that's why alien sightings have probably dried up. Because now we all have HD cameras. So when you do this, I go, yeah, Dan, good shot. That was in your closet.
I think it's very clear that in 2010, the intergalactic community outlawed abducting of humans on Earth because we are now an endangered species. So unfortunately, all the aliens out there were like, well, that's off territory now. That's how
we're on the cusp of what's that when first contact's allowed? Like,
oh yeah, we've got warp drive like any day now.
Yeah. Why do you think they've dried up? So what's the?
I think that it's a combination of factors. One, the provability of aliens. Like it used to be, you'd have like a shaky box video camera that not everybody could afford because they were like thousands of dollars. To like, boop, nope, they're not real. Or the advent of like the photoshopping and After Effectsing of that kind of thing. Like I can make it look even realer than it ever looked. So fakery is more rampant, so the suspicion is higher. Or the fact that aliens are just kind of like passé. It's just not like it was. People used to be. You could hinge an entire like primetime lineup around aliens.
Oh,
and
I
today
remember
it's
those
like
days.
Yeah,
Remember the
and
original show, Roswell, before they rebooted it and Natalie hates it now?
Roswell, X-Files, Millennium, like any show that's just like with the prospect of aliens. It's just like, boom. Now, aliens, okay. I mean,
The fad of aliens, like honestly,
It's a
aliens
fad,
just
yeah.
have gotten less interesting. People don't care as much, and so when people are like, "Oh, I got abducted," I don't care. I'm watching
Yeah.
this thing over here. Like, oh, I've got the MCU to worry about, guys. I can't worry about alien abductions. I'm too busy with all of that.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I could see
What
that.
about you?
I'm not sure, actually. That's why I wanted to get your opinion. This is one of those few times that I couldn't really come up with a concrete idea as to why it
Yeah.
dried up in 2010, because it was such a weird, hard stopping point. Maybe the advent of the internet really getting to its stride, because we had the internet before that, but it wasn't until like the mid-2010s that we all started like, okay, now I live here. This is the perfect utopia of hatred.
Fair.
I mean, and that's really all I could think of. We've been the world has been so obsessed with celebrity drama and content creator drama and the stuff that the internet has brought to us.
Yeah.
That they just don't care anymore about. Well, yeah, you may have had your butt probed by a gray. Oh, let me tell you what those
What
are.
does that even mean? I can imagine. I would love to know what like the target demographic back then, now today, would say to an alien abductee or to like crop circles. Remember when crop circles were a huge thing, and then it was like definitively proven they were faked, and it's like, but for a while it was really interesting, and even if it wasn't, very believable, it was still kind of like this. Wow, crop circles. What's the idea? It can't just be one guy with like some wood, and it's like, nope, it's a bunch of guys with wood. It's like, oh, okay. Now it's like, I don't know what's the equivalent today. I don't see a lot. Like, the other thing is, I don't see a lot of like fakery on TikTok, like, or any other like social media place where it would normally go. Like, you'd imagine that. You remember that scene in Signs when they had that video of the birthday party and there's that alien and everyone freaked out, and like the audience. I remember being in the theater and people going, oh, like people literally gasping or screaming at seeing like a blurry alien on a VHS tape in the movie theater. I'm surprised that we don't have that. Like, oh, hi. Most of them are actually. And you know what it could be? It could be just the commercialization of everything. Like, why would I invent a myth or perpetuate the idea that aliens are real when I could actually use the tools at my disposal to create a podcast that is that idea but fictitious, and I could commercialize it and monetize it, as opposed to just being like, dude, no, I really did I got taken up in a spaceship and aliens put things in my butt, and it's like it really happened to me, and here's the proof, and then people like scrutinizing it, and like, why put yourself up to that when you could just create a podcast about it and be like, wow, wouldn't that be messed up if that were real? Good thing it isn't, but subscribe.
The only thing I can really think of is kind of like I get what you're saying, and the world's in a weird place. It's almost like we've lost a sense of wonderment, of mystery.
Big time.
When I was a kid, okay, now this is gonna date me like crazy, but when I was a kid, I didn't go play video games or whatever. Like, I had a video game console, but it was a Nintendo. Like, I wouldn't sit there for 8 hours gaming or chatting on my phone or whatever. I didn't have a cell phone. What I did is I went in the woods and I explored, and we made up like urban legends, like, oh man, I just gotta wait. We must have like a chupacabra here. Like, it must be a chupacabra in our woods. Let's go build a fort and hang out there for 6 hours tonight and see if there's a chupacabra.
Right.
I knew there was no chupacabra, but now my buddies think there's a chupacabra. I remember we used to have a story that we would tell back when I was a kid. If you're in the woods and you hear like a howl, it's not a dog, it's a coyote that the circus you had the same story, I assume, Sal.
Oh, yeah.
The circus had something overturn, and the coyotes got loose in New England.
Oh, yeah. No, well, we had similar but like validated rumors about like there's an old zoo that had all these crazy animals, and it shut down and they let the animals out. And it's like, they did do that. But, that was 25 years ago. Like, the lions, if they were ever released, are dead or caught. But I remember hearing a rumor that like they'd released, I think it was coyotes. I remember them saying like there were coyotes that were like released into our woods to kind of like thin the populations of blah blah blah. That being said, the coyote population in my neck of the woods exploded. And now there really are, like, a woman was attacked by coyotes not too long ago. When I used to walk the dog, at my parents' house out in the woods, like, I'd walk by and, like, you could see their eyes in the woods. And I'm like, I gotta get the hell out of here. Like, coyotes are scary.
But I wonder about that. I wonder if it's a sense of wonderment. Someone mentioned in our chat Bloody Mary. I remember to this day distinctly, I went over to a buddy's house for like a sleepover. I was like 12, 13, okay? And we didn't play video games that night or watch a movie. We played Bloody Mary. And it was him and his sister. And like we all were like, oh, Bloody Mary's chasing us, running around the house for like 5-6 hours. And I still remember that as like a fun time as a kid.
Of course.
You know, nowadays, if I invited you over, Sal, and we played Bloody Mary, you might look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what are you talking
I'd be like,
about?
dude.
We're almost 40. What are you?
Right. I'm not 12.
But that's what I'm wondering about this, because that sense of wonderment is now gone. The amount of things that Dan sends me on TikTok, and then I send to Dan, and then we send to Houston, none of which requires me to go outside and take a photo of anything.
No.
You know, if I tell Dan that I went out and got abducted by aliens in the backwoods, his first response would be, "That's why you weren't on Sea of Thieves the other night? What were you doing out there?"
Yeah.
First question would have been, how much did you drink from your bar last night?
Yeah. The funny thing is, you know, we were talking about that. I was just thinking about, remember the Area 51 nonsense that happened when like
The
all those people,
raid?
the raid on Area 51? Clearly some people still believe.
Oh, well, people do. I mean, I found literally a source file of the best stories from Reddit. Reddit wasn't around in the 2000s. This isn't like, or maybe it was. But either way, this isn't archival stories.
Right.
You know, I guarantee like these are relatively recent.
Yeah.
I think one of the big reasons is that alien abductions, when they were first like talked about, they were to not so much the sense of wonderment, but more just to talk about something that was interesting, that was rare, that might have happened to you, that didn't happen to other people, or that you knew someone that they didn't know.
Yeah.
But now there's two aspects. One, there's too much content and stories out there that you don't care as much, but also the like having to prove it as much. Everyone's like, oh, proof or it didn't happen, pick or it didn't happen. I don't care. Like, and so we've reached the point where alien stories, honestly, I think the modern day like alien abduction, what I would consider, are Karen encounters. When people film themselves with someone that's ridiculous, because when you, like, if you were to say to someone, oh yeah, I saw this lady, she was screaming at this kid because he cut her, you go, no, that didn't happen. Like, no one's that crazy. But now you see the videos and you're like, oh. And so that's the thing you're going to, because back with like alien abductions and stuff like that, you'd be like, no one saw an alien. And you go, no, but look at this picture. I've got this blurry image in the background. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a picture. That cannot be disproven.
Right.
And I feel like we just continuously jump to the next thing that you can make interesting and semi-prove, but we've reached the point that there's just so much that no one cares.
Yeah.
Like, we've reached a point that, like, it's that, as well as, like, there's so much alcohol and drugs out there that you say you got abducted by an alien and you legitimately just go, okay, what were you smoking last night?
Well,
What were you doing?
That was
How late
always
were
the
you out?
accusation.
Like,
was just like, well,
Oh yeah,
we got
because I mean, as I say, this is the '70s, Dan. Drugs and alcohol.
No,
have been
I'm
wild,
very
and they've been
aware, but
around
I'm
long
also-
before that.
I'm
I mean, we
aware
used
that
to
things are a
actually.
lot
I mean,
more
I
legal
use
now.
whiskey as a pain medication, but the world used to do that.
no, I'm very aware, but like the more things that become legal, the more people that are like it's available to, therefore the more people can tell these stories. There you flood the gates. And that's more what I'm getting at, is like everyone can start having these stories, as opposed to, oh, well, that guy, like he knows this one guy that knows a guy, and that's how he was able to get. No, and I was like, I went down to the store, to the dispensary, I got something, I took a couple gummy bears, and then all of a sudden I was abducted into the sky, and I was laying on a field for 6 hours, and like, it's just
but
more
at the same
common.
time, like, I feel like that's not common. Like, people get high, but you don't see more. Like, we're not seeing a, you know, with the rise of legalization, a sudden a spike in alien abductions.
Oh,
you know?
no, sorry.
Right.
I mean more like people are experiencing things to make them go, oh, you had a weird sensation, and discounting it off the bat because you do
that's
get
true.
those
Okay.
things. That's more what I'm trying
That's
to
fair.
get
Okay.
at.
Yeah,
Well,
no, you're right.
To move our topic forward here and not spend the entire time discussing why we think they're gone, because I do think that I wanted to spend a lot of time on it because that's part of this. So in my research, the History Channel published the first alien abduction account, and how a lot of other stories have stemmed out of this. They've all kind of like been variations on this.
Okay.
The original story, according to the History Channel, okay, so like I want to clarify that right now. I'm not the one saying that this is the first alien abduction story. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it was on two individuals. It was Barney and Betty. Barney and Betty were on a road trip, which already sounds not real.
Yeah. Alliteration names, that's never a sign of believability.
Isn't that the Rebels?
Wait, is it?
Yeah, Barney and Betty Rubble.
From the Flintstones?
They wrote a book about it called The Interrupted Journey. It's a 1966 book in which they collaborated with an actual author to write their story. Okay. Barney worked a grueling night shift at a post office, driving 60 miles each way, and Betty's job handled state child welfare cases, making her exhausted as well. They had very little time. They were a biracial couple, which apparently is noted. I'm not quite sure if that's going to come up important, but let's just go ahead and say it. But you got to think that was kind of a big deal back in the 1960s to be a biracial couple. So, 16 months of marriage. They went through a trip from Montreal to Niagara Falls as a delayed honeymoon. And they only had $70 left in their bank account. I'm trying to skip through the story portion to just tell you the account.
This is like one of those recipes you find online where it's like, oh, you'll never believe.
So I was
What
making
it took.
chicken noodle soup, and
I don't care. You're making a pot roast. Give me the damn directions.
What's even worse than making a chicken noodle soup, Sal.
Yeah.
So anyway, they drove through, and as they stated, going between New Hampshire they left from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and it was between 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. They drove at a strange light in the sky. They panicked and drove faster. It looked like a falling star, and it grew brighter and larger every mile that they went towards it. Right now, I would have stopped going towards it, but whatever.
Fair.
Barney, an avid plane watcher and World War II vet, was sure that they had nothing to worry about and that it was just a satellite.
Okay.
Still, if I see a bright, large light getting...
I don't want to get pasted by a satellite, but all right.
Curiosity overcame them, and the couple pulled over at road stops and picnic turnouts to get a closer look. Through the binoculars, Betty could see the white light was actually an object spinning in the sky. About 70 miles past the diner, the object hovered just over the treetops, approximately 100 feet above them. Barney abruptly stopped his car, kept the engine running. He shoved a handgun he had hidden beneath the seat into his pocket and rushed into the dark field, leaving Betty in the car.
Oh my God.
But what he saw was as big as a jet and as round and as flat as a pancake. My God, he recalls thinking, what is that thing? It can't be real. Behind rows of windows, he saw gray uniformed beings that were looking right at him. He tried to lift his hand to his pistol, but somehow couldn't, and a voice told him to not put down his binoculars. He had a startling thought that they were about to be captured. Yelling hysterically, he ran back to the car, barreling down the road as Betty tracked the craft, craning her head outside of the car window. Without explanation, loud rhythmic beats sounded from the car's trunk, and the couple felt instantly drowsy and lost consciousness. They came to around 2 hours later and 35 miles down the road. They tried to make sense of the night, but Barney felt compelled to examine his body's lower half. Both seemed aware of a puzzling presence.
Oh, okay.
In the weeks and months after, Betty, an avid reader, checked books from the library, discovering a civilian UFO group, and she reported the sighting to the UFO, worried about radiation. The years following, she suffered from disturbing dreams, while Barney developed an ulcer and anxiety. The couple then sought mental help. The two met with Benjamin Simon, a psychiatrist and neurologist who specialized in hypnosis, a mainstream technique at the time. Through months of weekly sessions, Simon helped the couple piece together what they think had happened. A vessel had landed on Hill's car, putting them to sleep. Afterward, gray beings walked them up a long ramp and into the spacecraft. Once inside, they were separated, taking turns in the examination room that had curved walls and a large light hanging in the ceiling. Each was asked to climb onto a metal table. The table was so short that Barney's legs hung over the side. During the examinations, the beings removed their clothing, plucked strands of their hair, and took clippings of their nails, scraping their skin as well. Each sample was then placed in a clear material, not unlike a glass slide. Needles connected to wires probed their heads, arms, and legs, and spines. One large needle, around 4 to 6 inches long, was inserted into Betty's belly. This pregnancy test left her twisting in pain. Throughout, a being Barney and Betty called the leader watched from the side. After the examination ending, the beings rushed back into her room, excited. They discovered that Barney's teeth could be removed, and Betty laughed, explaining that Barney had dentures, a fact of human aging that the beings struggled to understand. Later, alone with the leader, Betty asked where the craft had flown, admitting that she knew little of the universe, and the being joked with her, telling her that if you don't know where you are, there wouldn't be any point in telling you where I am. Later, under hypnosis, she drew a star map shown to her on the ship. In 1965, the Hill story was then picked up by the Boston newspaper, and after that, everything changed. Their quiet story became the subject of a best-selling book and a movie starring James Earl Jones. Which movie is that?
I don't know.
It's literally called The UFO Incident.
Oh.
The upstanding civil servants became celebrities. And then it just goes on about how the story got bigger and bigger.
Right.
But doesn't that sound like every alien abduction story?
Yeah, that's every alien abduction story. Absolutely. From the losing power to the losing consciousness to the losing time, to the like benevolence of the aliens to their like mundane like gathering of data that they could easily gather at any point, and why would they repeatedly do it? Like, yeah,
that's one thing I've always wondered about alien abductions. We all make the joke of them probing the butt, but like, let's say legitimately they are. What are they looking for in our butts?
What do you want? How many butts do you need before you get what you're looking for, man? The other thing is the hypnosis. That's another big deal, and it's like it's carried over throughout most of these like stories, like because they're always missing time, and they're always missing memories.
Do you think that with the advent of us not using hypnosis as a way of psychiatry? Do you think that that's why the abduction stories have dried up a little?
I mean, no, I think that hypnosis helps like perpetuate it a little bit, but I don't know if like the falling out of fashion with hypnosis has in any way hurt it. I think it's a combination. I think if we did more hypnosis, maybe I don't know. It's interesting. But I like that we have like an origin point for most of these stories. Like this is where it comes from, and it got
according to the
national
History
news.
Channel, this is the earliest account we have. Which kind of makes sense because this was the same time period we heard about Roswell. We heard about these kinds of things happening.
Yeah.
You know, like these stories really are more of a recent occurrence. You never hear about an old West town being abducted, or we don't hear about like when the colonials came over and like how that they abducted all of them.
Yeah, I remember people being like, "What about Croatoan? Maybe that's like a thing." I'm like, no.
Well, yeah, but that's always theories. Like the Croatoan, there's that one, and is that the encampment
Roanoke
that everyone
colony.
went missing?
Yeah.
Roanoke colony. There's the Roanoke colony story, but we also hear stories like where did the Mayans go?
Right.
Like things like that.
Yeah, and then there's the whole Chariots of the Gods things where it's like aliens have been here since the beginning. They've helped us build pyramids and gave us like technology and stuff like that.
What do you think, Dan? Because I want to go over 3 of these other stories, or at least 2 of them, depending on our time here, to see how close to these they are.
Well, honestly, based on the fact that pretty much every abduction story sounds like the one you just said, which was in the 60s, I honestly think that around 2010, I think the legitimacy of this first one, we're going to put that aside. We're just going to focus on all the ones after. I think a lot of people saw that these people had an interesting story. It became a movie. They wanted to be the next one doing that. People were not original, so they kept going for the alien abductions because you can't necessarily unprove it. Like it's one of those ones where it's hard to both prove and unprove.
Right.
Therefore, if you can't prove me wrong, I don't have to prove I'm right, kind of thing.
Exactly.
And people are just constantly trying to get their moment in the spotlight. And as time has gone on, there have been more avenues for people to go, okay, well, everyone's doing the alien abduction story. I'm going to jump on this new train. I'm going to like try and get popular in this thing. And I think people have just jumped to different uses of their imagination to get popularity. And because like 2010, like that was a lot more of heavy online videos and stuff. So now everyone's like, why should I try and make people believe I got abducted by this alien when instead ghost stories?
Right. Ghosts are so much easier, but like ghosts, Bigfoot, Wendigos, like you could just vampires. You know,
it reminds me of a lot of the arguments that I have with people, because for those who are just listening to this on Spotify, we all run comic book themed stuff where we talk about speculation, and I get into a lot of arguments with like the fandom about like, here's my theory, and then they want to argue up and down, and I'm like, I don't care what you want to argue. It's my theory.
Right.
So you can't prove me wrong, and I can't prove it myself right. So we're just leaving it as is. Leave it alone. And it's kind of like what you said, Dan. Like jumping on and making alien abduction my thing, hoping that I'll be the next one to get picked up.
Yeah.
You can't disprove me. The aliens didn't come down and be like, no, we didn't abduct that guy.
Not that guy.
Crap.
He's full of crap. Oh no.
Yeah. You know, but this guy over here, he hasn't even said anything. Go ask him what we did.
Yeah.
Doesn't involve the butt.
He'll say it won't, but it does.
All right, so I got this website here. It's from the Travel Channel. You know, another. So these are curated some of the best stories they could find on Reddit.
Okay.
About 2 years ago, I was in Naples, Florida with my friend. We were on the porch having a smoke around 11 p.m. I was leaning on the railing when I thought I saw a plane in the distance coming towards us. It was flying so low that the front lights blinded us. My friend scrambled for his phone, which turned out to be dead, and I, fearing I would miss it, didn't want to run inside and grab mine. Though the craft was steadily gliding, it was all happening so fast. As the object got closer, we noticed it was a huge black triangle with 3 huge circular lights on the bottom. It was so close that it was just above the trees right in front of the building. It was so silent. The only thing making any noise was the trees rustling beneath the craft. Then the huge black triangle freaking turned on a dime right in front of us and disappeared over the tops of the buildings. I couldn't believe what I saw if I didn't see it was somebody else. Okay, that one's not this is supposed to be alien abductions, but all right. You did not get abducted.
You were not abducted. You saw a UFO.
I'm trying to see if any of these are actually abducted, because it said alien abduction stories.
Right, you're like, all right, hang on a minute.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Let me see what I can find here. Maybe someone else got their butt probed. Well, then this also proves my point, though. Like, finding alien abduction stories that are more modern are not easy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing is nobody wants to put themselves out on a line like that. You know, like, let's say they even think that they were abducted by aliens. It's like, I have a lot to lose if I say I was.
Yeah, exactly. A lot to lose, not much to gain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the movies and like adaptations that can be derived from your story probably already been done.
Oh, here you go. Okay, the alien abduction narrative is a phenomenon of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, which distinguishes this era from previous eras of its prolific of increasing sophisticated technology and its growing presence in the daily lives of ordinary people. When the modern UFO era began in 1947, many of household electronic devices in use today had already been developed. But ownership of these devices was not widespread, even in relatively wealthy countries. Advances in mass productions weren't until the 1950s and 60s, together with the increased prosperity in the wake of World War II, greatly expanding the presence and number of such items in average homes of industrialized nations. Electronic television sets, for example, became available for purchase to the general public in the 1930s, but the proportion of U.S. households owning them in the 1950s was only 10%, increasing rapidly to 94% by 1965. By 2005, ownership had increased only slightly to 98%, but the average number of televisions per household has now grown to 3. Yeah, I got 3 TVs.
Yeah.
Other technologies have also taken longer to infiltrate the home. In the 1940s saw the beginning of computer technology, but it was not until the introduction of the microchip in 1975 that the home computer became a possibility. In 1984, just 20% of the Americans even used a computer. Most of this usage was confined to the workspace. But in 2007, this number has increased to 80%, with 76% of the Americans owning a personal computer. Even more intimate than technology in the home, the use of technology in the body has also increased dramatically during this period. So I think what this article is getting at is the reason why this narrative was such a big deal is we go back to we didn't understand our own technology.
Right.
I mean, maybe that was a satellite, which made for a great narrative for these people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, satellites are a big deal with that. Also, I mean, we can't discount the idea of actual UFOs, by which I mean stealth satellites or stealth vehicles that were developed by the government that were used in like their. I mean, like the stealth bomber looks a lot like a UFO, and it's,
right.
If they're testing it in Arizona, you know, in the 40s, 50s, whatever, it's gonna scare some people, you know.
So I think while I had these articles up, and I didn't want to read, I skimmed through them, like, because I didn't want to read them ahead of time so I could have the same reactions as you guys, and I apologize for that, because apparently they're just UFO stories.
Right.
I didn't think that one would backfire, but...
Right.
But I think what we can get at is alien abduction stories have really dried up, and they all seem to stem, and they're all very, very much that original story being told throughout the ages.
Yeah.
So while you were saying that, I had this thought and I wanted to Google it. Another reason I think 2010 time frame is when it ended was in the story that you told, they were in their car and then supposedly they got abducted while they were in their car.
Yeah.
2007.
Most of the stories are like that. I was alone on the highway at 1 a.m.
Exactly. And so what does everyone have nowadays? A phone.
Right.
In 2007, GPS became much more common on every single kind of phone. So if you're saying you got abducted and you have this device that legitimately just records where you are at all times, it's going to show you didn't go anywhere. So it's
that's
much
a really
harder.
good point. No, I swear I got abducted over on I-278.
Exactly.
Like, Benny, I just looked up your Google Maps history.
You didn't go anywhere.
Exactly like that, because it started like 99 was when GPS phones was like a big thing, and 2007 and onwards was when it was like on normal phones. So I think that's a big factor in these abduction stories, because you can't argue that fact.
No.
If you've got a device that says you were right here, you claim that you got taken while the device was on you. You're not going to go, oh, well, sorry, the alien took it out of my pocket and threw it on the ground first.
I threw it on my dash.
You will do that if you claim to be abducted by aliens, because like you need to have every situation work for you. And like, how many times do Hollywood writers have to have someone's cell phone not get reception or die in order to tell a story that has been told for the last like 70 years?
Yeah.
So I think this is the first time I think we've debunked our own thing, but I'm going to go ahead and ask as usual. Dan, do you believe in alien abductions now?
No, not based off of this discussion. Definitely not.
Sal, do you believe in alien discussions?
Not this time.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of Nope. Next week, we're going to be discussing more of the alien myths, rumors, and truths right here on the channel. So make sure you check it out by subscribing to us right here on YouTube or hitting that like button, because both of those will help us out a ton. Let us know your theories on alien abductions down below. And if you're listening on Spotify and really enjoyed this program, please consider giving us a 5-star review. I choked. Thank you, and have a good day.